Now, in this presentation, we'll focus on how the use of probiotics and prebiotics, particularly combined in them, help reduce the incidence of foodborne pathogens in poultry. We'll talk about the drivers for searching for feed additives. We'll talk a little bit of background about probiotics and prebiotics, and we'll highlight some most recent published research in this area. There are many factors that drive this search for alternative poultry health feed additive, but a few float to the top. One is antibiotics have been restricted or banned from being used as growth promoters, and there is a need for replacing some of the benefits that we've lost from not using antibiotics, and also not only the benefits for production, but also these benefits that actually help us from a food safety perspective. It is commonly known that Salmonella and Campylobacter are top 4 foodborne pathogen risks in the United States. They do cause some serious illness, and they do so almost every year, according to the CDC, and they're commonly associated with poultry. Without going into a lot of details, probiotics and prebiotics have been used in the poultry industry for a long time, and their benefits are well established, particularly in terms of improving efficiency of broiler, turkey, and layer production. And not only that, but they also do reduce pathogens. They also, in terms of probiotic, for instance, not only do they do that, they reduce mycotoxins and so on. But the importance is the fact that these are very practical feed additives. They can be added in feed easily. They're added at a low inclusion rate, and you can do it at mash feed or pelleted feed, which makes them a really good tool, not only for production, but also they can reduce some of these incidents associated food safety, and that would be great. So let's look at some of the highlights of some of the most recent research in this area. In this study, the objective was to test the impact of Bacillus subtilis in combination with mannobiose on Salmonella in pullets. And in this case, the test birds were fed the material. Control groups were not, and both groups were challenged with Salmonella at 8 days of age. And then Salmonella was monitored in the ceca for 14 days post-infection. At 3, 6, 10, and 14, in each of those times, there was a reduction in Salmonella compared to the control. And by day 14, there was a significant reduction of more than 1 log. This is actually very encouraging in terms of opportunities for helping reduce Salmonella challenges in laying hens. This is also a challenge study by Manafee et al., but in this case, it's a challenge by E. coli, and it's done in broiler chickens. They also, in this case, wanted to compare the effect of Bacillus subtilis and an antibiotic, BMD 50 in this case. At 42 days of age, the Salmonella as well as E. coli were significantly reduced equally by Bacillus and BMD. And coliforms were also reduced. Now, in turkey poults, this group out of NC State looked at the impact of Bacillus subtilis, or a combination of Bacillus subtilis and mannanoligosaccharides, on Salmonella and Campylobacter infection. This was a 21-day study. They inoculated the birds at day 7 by either Salmonella or Campylobacter, and looked at specifically at the impact on the integrity of the intestinal, the mucosa. They found that the colonization by Salmonella was significantly reduced by either Bacillus, the mannanoligosaccharide, or the combination of the two. They also saw significant improvement in the intestinal integrity, particularly significant increases in villi, significant increases of goblet cells, mucus production, and also associated with that, significant increase in segmented filamentous bacteria, which is important in terms of maturation of the gut immune system. They concluded that Bacillus subtilis mannobiose from yeast cell wall, or a combination of the two, provided a protection against Salmonella and Campylobacter and led to improvement in performance in turkey poults. The same research group out of NC State reported a year earlier from the same study on Salmonella shedding throughout the period of 21 days of the trial. They found that there was a significant reduction, more than 1 log reduction in Salmonella in the fecal material, either by the prebiotics, the probiotics, or the combination of the two. They concluded that Bacillus subtilis and mannanoligosaccharides combination provided a good opportunity to reduce Salmonella shedding in turkey poults. Now let's look at some work on prebiotics. This is an older paper by Aguinos et al. Back in 2007, but it does look at beta-1,4 mannobiose derived from mayonnaise hydrolyzed copramyl, the impact of it on Salmonella enteritidis in broiler chickens. What's interesting about this paper is they only fed the material for the first two weeks and monitor the impact for the remaining time up to 33 days of age. They monitored Salmonella shedding every 2 days up to 19 days post-infection. They also compared the beta-1,4 mannobiose to D-mannan. What they found is that by day 19, it was practically no Salmonella shedding with the birds fed the beta-1,4 mannobiose. Mannos did also reduce the shedding, but not as effectively as beta-1,4 mannobiose. The binding of some of these prebiotics to pathogens like Salmonella and Campylobacter has been reported on from research before. This team out of Texas A&M, Frobel et al., wanted to understand and demonstrate how this mechanism works. And they looked at beta-glucan mannoligosaccharides and D-mannos out of yeast cell wall. These are refined as opposed to crude. Looked at the impact of how they reduce the adhesion of Salmonella and Campylobacter to poultry epithelial cells in vitro. They showed a dose-dependent inhibition both for Salmonella and Campylobacter, which suggested that the reduction of adherence caused by probiotics is an important mode of action for reducing colonization. Not shown here, but also they showed that this inhibition is not only caused by mannanoligosaccharides, but beta-glucans also bind Salmonella and Campylobacter, particularly for Salmonella. But they also showed that D-mannos, while it does bind, is not as effective as the mannanoligosaccharides or the beta-glucans. So also evaluating oligosaccharides and their impact on Salmonella, this group, Fu et al., looked at oligosaccharides from palm kernel cake and their impact on Salmonella in vitro. They highlighted the fact that they work extremely well on an inhibiting adherence of Salmonella, and that that they are more effective than mannonoligosaccharides or fructooligosaccharides that were purchased commercially. What's interesting about this paper is that this group went further and looked at the impact of the level of polymerization of these oligosaccharides and how effective they may be against salmonella. They also pointed out the fact that the mannonoligosaccharides that was used turned out to be mostly D-mannose. And of course, D-mannose is not as effective as the remaining oligosaccharides. For the interest of time, I would encourage you to read the paper. In summary, foodborne pathogens remain a concern. What's exciting is that probiotics and prebiotics have demonstrated potential for reducing these foodborne pathogens through a number of modes of actions. Now, this area is an active and innovative area, and so we expect more select and effective products and also better application of these prebiotics and probiotics. But mostly, what's really exciting is to see how the combination of prebiotics and probiotics not only further improve production, but also help with reducing foodborne pathogens and improving food safety as a whole.